The Christ Letters, with enhanced narration and text. Letter 6.2. How ego impacts a child's development. The ego takes over control of your developing fetus from the time of the union of the semen and ovum. The new little being became an I immediately, feeling satisfaction and dissatisfaction in the womb, depending on its sense of comfort or discomfort and what was happening to mother. When you were born, your instincts of survival, imprinted with the deep primeval knowledge of created beingness, buried in each living cell of your body, prompted you to breathe and become aware of an emotional emptiness and deprivation at your separation from the comfort of the confining womb, which was then felt as a physical emptiness and need for physical nourishment. Thus was your ego cry born. When you cried, you were given nourishment by mother, which was deeply satisfying, both physically and emotionally. When your needs were fully met, you could slip back into a state of equilibrium within sleep. When you woke from your equilibrium, you felt a sense of insecurity. The equilibrium now divided into mental and emotional awareness. You remembered that mother and milk created a fulfillment of needy insecurity, and so again you cried. Your needs were fulfilled. So did your ego drive develop. Sometimes you cried and it was humanly decreed that it was not yet feeding time, and you were left to cry for a while. This built up an awareness that needs were not always satisfied immediately, and you would have to adapt. You either chose anger and cried more vigorously, or lapsed into acceptance. Your choice of reaction depended on the characteristics of ego drive, imprinted in your consciousness at birth. Neither forms of ego drive were to be condemned or judged. They were the natural result of the creative factor of ego, which ensures individuality. As I have explained in my last letter, ego is the guardian of individuality. If you did not have this inbuilt impulse to cry for what you want to make you happy, or reject what makes you sad, you would be in a limbo of nothingness. If you did not run when faced with danger, or did not call for help when in danger, you might die. If you had not cried, demanded food, when you were born, you might have starved. If you had not welcomed mother's milk and nuzzled her warmly, you might never have developed a close, caring bond with her. Without the ego drive, there would be no creation, no individuality, no fulfillment of need, no protection, no warmth of response, and no human love. Without the ego drive, there would be no self-defense, no self-protection, no survival. However, the ego drive, primarily the I of the individual, is imprinted only with the need for self-satisfaction and survival. In childhood, the I of the ego is governed by likes and dislikes, wants and rejection of what is not wanted, and by habits formed by a constant repetition of feelings. Bad habits in the form of unacceptable ego responses to personal experiences and the environment are formed, and these are, in turn, imprinted in the unconscious or subconscious mind and remain hidden. However, they erupt into repeated behavior patterns when the memory of previous circumstances and modes of behavior unconsciously bring them to mind. Now, the subconscious mind and the conscious mind begin to work together to develop the personality. Much of the behavior becomes conditioned behavior and very difficult to break. When the person is unconsciously programmed with strong self-centered ego habits of thought and behavior, and finds it difficult to live with others in harmony, that person then goes to a psychologist for help in unraveling the complexities of the mental, emotional problems. Until my truth of existence is fully understood and the life-giving principles become the consistent guidelines of habits of thought and responses to life's experiences, the pain and suffering arising from the ignorant indulgence of the ego drives will persist. The Church describes this human difficulty as being a temptation by Satan. It is no such thing. It is a natural process brought about by the uncontrolled reactions to life, powered by the ego drive, whose only purpose is to bring the individual happiness and contentment, fulfillment of need, or privacy, independence, security, peace, all directed at survival. It must be understood that there is nothing evil about the ego drive. It is the necessary tool of creation. It is the individual himself who brings about the imbalances in life by allowing the ego drive full control in his personality, without thought or consideration for other people. This too is not to be judged or criticized, since the person possessed by ego drive knows no other way to think or operate within the earthly dimension. The child knows nothing about self-control other than that taught by parents and school teachers. Therefore, the mistakes it makes in responding to life and its ups and downs can only be accepted in good spirit by parents and teachers, since the child has no understanding of what is driving him. If he wants something, he wants something right away and wonders why he shouldn't have it. There is nothing more in his mind than this. He sees something he likes, he wants it. It is cruel to tell a child roughly, "No, you can't have it." His entire system is insulted and assaulted. From earliest babyhood, the training process must be initiated by logic and reassurance, affirming his right to feel secure within his environment. His sense of security should be developed by explaining the right way to express his wishes. Love, not irritation or anger, must choose the words which tell the child why he cannot have what he wants. The child will hear the message when given in love. When delivered in anger, it arouses his deepest ego drives and begins to take form as resentment, overt or hidden, or a sense of deep-seated frustration which taints the ego, reducing the child's natural sense of inner validity. A child needs to possess this sense of personal validity and should not be subdued or destroyed. It requires parents or teachers to point out very clearly that other people in the world also have their needs, their rights to their possessions, their desire for peace and pleasure. No one, not even a child or adult, has the right to upset another person in order to obtain their own satisfaction. If another youngster hits the child and makes him cry, it is only natural for the ego drive to want to fight back. He is programmed to defend himself against the other child. It calls for parents and teachers to point out that a payback, revenge in conflict, only escalates, bringing more pain to each child, and for this reason, payback is entirely pointless. Better to laugh and turn away. And rather than allow the irritation and hurt in the mind to continue, better still to take the problem to divine consciousness in prayer and ask for the hurt to be removed from his consciousness and seek a means of reconciliation. A child should also be taught to take time to understand that he and the other child are equally children born of the divine moment. When a child is spiritually receptive and can make this procedure of recognizing his spiritual kinship with other children and all living things, and the rights of others equal with his own, into a habit, he will have been given the greatest spiritual gift possible. In such a way is the ego drive weakened by the practical daily application of inspirational love, whilst the central I-ness of the child remains strong and self-confident. The child should be taught the benefits of laughter, which I will describe and explain in a later letter. Therefore, skilled and insightful teaching is absolutely necessary to steer the child into an appreciation of the rights of other people, equal with their own rights. This is the spiritual law which should dominate the home and the classroom. Any other law by which to judge circumstances is faulty and lacking in balance. The best teaching will rely not on the will of the teacher, the because I say so attitude, but on a systematic reference in every circumstance to brotherly love and the equal rights of others. At the same time, a child should not be indoctrinated in self-sacrifice, since this type of caring must be willing and born only of the individual's spiritual perceptions and goals. Self-sacrifice is born of spiritual enlightenment, of a higher road to follow, of denial of the little self to remove the ego barriers obstructing attunement with the universality of divine consciousness. True, enlightened self-sacrifice brings a spiritual consciousness to the heights of joy. There is no sense of loss in any form.